Canada, one of the world's largest countries. It was a singular challenge for explorers and pioneers to open this vast land. The railways played a central role. And today you can cross Canada on historic train routes that follow great rivers, blaze through forests and tundra, and climb through Rocky Mountains from sea to sea to sea. Our journey continues through Western Canada as we leave the prairies behind, cross the foothills of Alberta, and explore the highest reaches of Canada from the Yukon to Vancouver Island. We'll ride over the Rockies on the famous transcontinental train, the Canadian, and on the Rocky Mountaineer Rail Tours. Reach the interior of British Columbia on the Skeena, follow the Caribou Wagon Road, and climb aboard the Malahide Dayliner on the Pacific Coast. Our journey begins as we reach Edmonton, known in Canada as the Gateway to the North. The capital of Alberta is a vibrant city on the North Saskatchewan River. In the center of the city, close by the provincial legislature, is the original site of Fort Edmonton. These archaeology students have been digging up the past, literally.
There was a West warehouse put in after 1860, and that's what we're investigating. In the 12 weeks that we've been digging, we've come up with over 14,000 artifacts from the site, ranging from pieces of bone to little tiny trade beads and ceramics. It's really wonderful, and it's great to be doing part of Edmonton's history.
It opened in May of 1974 as a result of Edmontonians who wanted to preserve their history. And so Fort Edmonton Park is actually a representation of 4 periods of time, from 1846 when we had a Hudson's Bay fur trading post, and then our streets of 1885, 1905, and 1920. And we try to recreate life as it would have been.
It took a whole year to get this Baldwin steam locomotive looking as it did a century ago. The 2 coach cars could carry as many as 110 passengers. Edmonton's original city railway was vital for the settlement's business. Until the railway went in, everything traded through Edmonton had to be hauled by wagon or sled and shipped by riverboat across the North Saskatchewan River.
The streetcar that you just saw go by has actually been in operation since 1908, so it's a real treasure to us. And cars and trucks have been donated to us, Model A's. We have Edmonton's first tour bus is here with us in the park. So there's a multitude of things that have been restored, generally through volunteer support.
Between the 1890s and 1930s, almost 250,000 Ukrainians settled in this east-central part of Alberta, and this is the history that we show. We've moved over 30 buildings, including homes, businesses, churches, a school, from towns and farms in this part of Alberta. We've moved them here, restored them to what they looked like in that time period, and we have role players, people in costume, that portray the actual pioneers. I think it's a fascinating history. My great-grandparents came to Canada, and I heard the stories when I was younger about living in a clay and log house with a clay oven inside. And I find that senior citizens appreciate it as well, because they can say, oh, you know, I remember that, and they explain to their grandchildren how it might have worked.
Elk Island started out in 1906 as Canada's first wildlife refuge for large mammals, specifically the elk. And we have a large plains bison herd as well. Right now, we're in the middle of their mating season. The bulls engage in displays, one to another, to establish dominance. Eventually, a pecking order is established, and of course the dominant animal has the breeding privileges, but he's not above being challenged. And if he's gathering a harem, it takes a lot of his time and energy to keep this harem together. And he's kept from feeding and all that sort of thing. So he becomes very irritable. But for 80 years, Elk Island was a place where fire didn't occur. If it did occur, it was an all-out battle to stop it, whether it was from a lightning strike or from a careless camper. We put out every fire. And in this environment that at one time was woodland and open prairie meadow, we now have a closed forest.
To restore the park's natural diversity, fire was reintroduced into the ecosystem. It pushed back the aspen forest and allowed the native species to regain a foothold. This eerie sandstone landscape was once a subtropical swamp. More than 70 million years ago, it was actually a corner of the Gulf of Mexico. Today in Dinosaur Provincial Park, it's a little difficult to visualize Edmontosaurus and other prehistoric giants munching away on leafy greens.
This is a 70-million-year-old dinosaur playground around here. They had about 5 million years left before the final extinction. By now, they're getting small, they're getting fast, they're getting smarter. They're starting to be about the size of a big greyhound.
Dinosaur Provincial Park is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It stretches some 27 kilometers along the banks of the Red Deer River. These badlands and prairie hold one of the richest deposits of dinosaur fossils anywhere. Long after the dinosaurs had disappeared, buffaloes met their end at a place called Head Smashed In Buffalo Jump. This World Heritage Site near Fort Macleod had been used for 6,000 years to harvest bison. Native bands would drive thundering herds over these steep cliffs. In the mid-1800s, firearms came on the scene, leading to the indiscriminate slaughter of buffalo by both native bands and white hunters. Within 3 decades, the great herds had disappeared from the plains, and the simple economy of the native people had collapsed.
This buffalo jump was in use about the same time or before the pyramids were getting built over on the other side of the world. Before the horse was even introduced to the Blackfeet Nation tribe, what they call imitatas, dog team days. Every year, about this time of the fall, is when they use this buffalo jump. If you take all the roads and the buildings and the fences all off out of here, and you put 60 million buffalo out there roaming at one time, buffalo. Hey, that one guy, old guy was talking about if you were going to go cross country here, and that buffalo just happened to be going by, you'd have to sit and wait 3 days and 3 nights just for a herd just to pass by. Here at this buffalo jump is where the people get that's their survival. This is where the stories come out, is the survival and how he lived for the winter months. He get enough food, just like the white man, he'll butcher beef and put in his deep freeze. This is the same thing. To the elders here, it's a sacred ground today.
From Edmonton, the Canadian heads west to the Rocky Mountains. In the beginning, the railway was supposed to link the provinces and bind them into confederation. It turned out to be just as good for tourism. CPR's general manager, William Van Horn, took one look at the Canadian Rockies and said, if we can't export the scenery, we'll import the tourists. And he did. People come from all over the world to marvel at the spectacle of ice and snow, glaciers and rocky peaks. There are 3 main passes into the mountains, at Jasper in the north, at Crow's Nest in the south, and here, just west of Calgary, at Banff National Park. Banff was Canada's first national park. It's still the most popular. It stretches for hundreds of kilometers along the Continental Divide. The mountains first emerged from under a vast inland sea some 70 million years ago. Over the millennia, their fantastic shapes were roughly carved by ice sheets nearly a kilometer thick, then smoothed and sculpted by the erosive forces of wind and water. What's left of those ice sheets can still be seen in the glaciers and ice caps that cling to the high peaks and poke their icy tongues into the valleys and the rivers. In a setting fit for a priceless gem, Lake Louise is backdropped by the Victoria Glacier, while a giant glacial moraine dams its milky green waters. Banff Springs, Canada's castle in the Rockies. The CPR set out to design a series of luxury hotels along the railway line through the Rocky and Selkirk Mountains. To reach the hotels, visitors naturally would have to take the train. In 1886, the plans for Banff Springs called for a hotel to be built above the junction of the Bow and Spray rivers. More than a century later, the Fairmont Banff Springs Hotel still stands majestically, overlooking the beautiful Bow Valley. Banff is a magnet for winter sports, alpine and cross-country skiing and snowshoeing. Deep champagne powder beckons people from all over the world to challenge these majestic mountains. Elk and moose, cougars and bears, bighorn sheep and mule deer all call these slopes of spruce and alpine fir home. The elk especially wander into town and occasionally take in a game of golf. The giant national parks at Banff and Jasper meet at the Columbia Icefield, which is really 30 distinct glaciers, all that's left of a vast ice shield that covered most of Canada. It's the largest accumulation of ice in the Rockies and is hundreds of meters thick. Down below from the Icefields Parkway, the Emerald Lakes can be canoed, and the Athabasca Glacier can be crossed in a snow coach.
Columbia Icefield itself is just over 100 square miles, and it is the mother of all rivers because it does flow into or creates water for 3 different rivers, the Saskatchewan, the Columbia, and the Athabasca. And each of those rivers flow into 3 different oceans, so it is a hydrological center of North America, with the Saskatchewan flowing eventually into Hudson's Bay, the Athabasca into the Arctic, and the Columbia into the Pacific.
A century ago, Jasper National Park was created. It's one of 4 connected reserves known as the 4 Mountain Park Block: Jasper, Banff, Yoho, and Kootenay. They straddle the Continental Divide and are the largest mountain parkland in the world.
Jasper National Park is a protected area that protects the Rocky Mountain ecosystem, and Jasper National Park is one of the mountain parks in that ecosystem, and we protect wildlife species, vegetation that are representative of this ecoregion.
Ever since Canada's transcontinental railway was built across thousands of kilometers of rugged terrain, the route through the Rockies has proved to be the most spectacular for travelers. So that passengers could see the best of the Rockies in daylight, a new rail service was set up in 1990. Rocky Mountaineer Rail Tours breaks the journey into 2 spectacular days. The trains run eastbound from Vancouver and westbound from either Calgary or Jasper. The venture has been so successful, there are now winter excursions through the snowbound Rockies. The Canadian Rockies are a sparkling jeweled crown. Year-round, world travelers come to look in awe at the mountain routes that wind through a jumble of castle-like ridges, plateaus and Matterhorns, tumbling rivers and jagged peaks. When anyone sings about springtime in the Rockies, this is what they mean. This always has been postcard country, a backdrop for movies like Rosemarie and modern adventures like Heliski. The river, the highways, the railways, the mountains, they all merge at Kamloops. It's a natural crossroads and meeting place, and the oldest city in British Columbia. From high above, dining with the stars, you can marvel at Kamloops' perfect position. A new day, and the train sets out for Vancouver. The route carries it down the Thompson River to the Fraser, through the Fraser Canyon, jogging from one side to the other, and over the bridges at Hell's Gate. Bald eagles patrol, and you might catch a glimpse of an osprey nest. Ahead, Vancouver, Canada's Pacific Gateway. In the 19th century, the railway had brought thousands of Chinese workers to Canada. They came to build the rail lines and to work in the Caribou gold field.